Hi, Simon. It's so great to be with you today.
Penelope, it's such a pleasure to be here with you. Thank you very much for talking to me.
Well, thank you. I'm so excited about this new podcast and sharing ideas on life and how to connect and interconnect things together. And also, I recently launched something called Flow with Art. So it's something that is really interesting on how yoga is a way of living. It's an art of life, right? So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, for me, there is exercise, but exercise doesn't really help you in your life. I think your life has to include your body and how it functions, but also how you interact with the rest of the world. So I always try and make my practice that I call anything to do with yoga relate to five aspects of my life: physical health, physiological health, mental health, also social health, and also financial health, meaning how are you able to live your life, and actually if you're earning money to earn enough money to live, or if you're living in a community, how can you exchange your energy so your lifestyle is actually provided for. The social interaction is also important, so you have communication with your friends and family in a loving way, but also the physical aspects of your life, including the health of your body in terms of being pain-free and functional, your energy levels, your physiology, and your ability to heal from sickness, recover from injury, digest and absorb nutrients, and be calm at the same time, and also your mental state. Are you basically a happy person with a balance between your logical ability to think and your intuitive ability to feel? So these things, five levels, is your life. And so that's different to exercise. Exercise often focuses on strength, flexibility, and fitness. But I think you need to focus on physical, pain-free, functional body, physiologically, energy in your body, but calm and internal organ health, mentally, focused, calm, intuitive, logical, and then socially, your ability to interact with those around you, and then financially or lifestyle wise, can you actually sustain your life in a way where you're not hurting others, but maybe cooperating and helping with others? That to me is yoga, where you encompass all the aspects of your life in a way where you integrate with those around you and the world around you. That's different to just exercise.
Yeah, it's very interesting because when I before I met you, I was really into this I mean, we could say three dimension, which is the body, the mind, and the spirit. And to see how to align that, we need to work onto a physical level, to work onto an emotional level, and to work on an energetic level. And incorporating those two different aspects you're adding, which is the 5D, which is almost like if we transport it into um, this movement, spiritual movement, which is like, oh, how do I go from 3D to 5D? This is exactly it into the material world. This is what you're teaching, basically. And this is what we're trying to do from different approaches. To my level, you adding the physical, the material, whether normally when we just have the 3D, there's not all of those aspects that are important to it too. And it's true that we need to take everything into consideration, like a circle.
Yes, it's important to take everything into consideration, like a circle, it's true. When I call my system a five-dimensional flow, and I have lots of fives in it. So I mentioned five aspects of your life, which are important, but there's also five parts in the time of your life as well. Some people also focus on practicing in a way where they feel good after their practice, or maybe it's going to make them strong in the future, or maybe it's going to, help them tomorrow or the next day. I feel it's important that when you practice, you consider five time zones in your life. It's important that while you're practicing, you're enjoying it. In the present moment is an important time zone. Often people forget. I call my system five-dimensional flow because, as you were saying, we were talking about the different aspects of our life. And if you want to help someone using any form of posture, movement, breathing, mental control, all the things that people like to do to help people, then I believe it's important to focus on five aspects of your life, which is what we were saying, including the physical, physiological, mental, and I also mentioned social and financial or lifestyle. But I also have other fives in my five-dimensional flow, and one of them is the temporal five. So I think it's important that you focus on not just after your practice. How do you feel when you finish? It's important you enjoy the practice while you're doing it. Because if you're doing a practice and it's enjoyable, you're more likely to come back to it. But for many people, they practice in a painful way. It's uncomfortable. It's boring. I don't want to do this exercise, but I know it's good for me. And not everyone will practice in that case, because 95% of people will only practice if it's not painful while you're doing it. And it actually has to be fun if you're doing it. If it's fun, they'll do it. If it's not fun, they might not do it. If it's painful, most people will never do it. So I believe it's important that you focus on 5 time zones. The time zone of while you are doing the practice, the time zone of immediately after you finish, so you feel, oh, that was fun. But then also, what about the next day? Because many people do exercise, they enjoy it while they're doing it, but the next day they're in pain. That will put people off, you know? And then if you do it for a few weeks or months and you're in pain in a few weeks or months, that's not helpful. That's the medium-term future. But what you really, I think, is important to work with, especially when you get to my age, I'm 64. If your practice doesn't help you in 20 or 30 years' time, you just won't be able to continue. So many of my friends who did intense exercise in terms of sports, gymnastics, yoga, dance in their 20s and 30s, they are not able to do anything in their 50s and 60s, So that's why I focus on 5 time zones: present moment, immediately after, short-term future, medium-term future, and the long-term future of the decades away. That's part of my 5-dimensional flow. But the most important part of my 5-dimensional flow is the idea that all natural movement starts from your core, which is the small part of your trunk, which can move in 5 different ways. That's my 5-dimensional flow, and we can talk about that at length whenever you like.
Yeah, it's very interesting because that's where, when we met, I could find the similarity with my coaching. When I teach, everybody tend to be very formal, especially if you coach corporate people, it seems to be like really, really formal and with lots of protocols. And I think we need to bring more joy and beauty into that, which is what you bring into this 5-dimensional flow. And everything starts from the core in the coaching. Everything starts from within. So we can see the parallel here, which I really enjoyed. And I remember during one of your lecture, and when we were studying during the yoga teacher training, I was like, oh my God, my coaching is actually yoga. And I realized this, and to thank you, because you helped me making that connection, that everything is connecting to even deeper level, because on that core, and also this no pain, no gain, which is into the mindset of a lot of people. This is something that you are using a lot. And it's those aspects of, you can work on yourself without being in pain, whether it's on an emotional level, on a spiritual level, on a physical level, on all different levels of your life. You don't have to be in pain. But I don't understand why there is this mindset of being like, oh, I have sore muscles, this is so good. I mean, I work so well and everything. Whether you can have this well-being by just going with this flow. And I experienced that with you. And that was really mind-blowing, really something that really changed my entire practice, even my practice of Iyengar, my practice of Pilates. My Pilates is completely different nowadays. So it's really interesting to see how you approach it without the pain, that you can actually heal your body, heal your mind, remove blockages, remove resistance with no pain, whether we've been taught that we need to go through the pain to heal.
Yes. Yes, shall I comment on that in that case?
Of course, yes.
Yes, yeah. No, so many people have this idea, and it's a scientifically based idea based on observation, that if you make the body work in a way where it fails, then it will be required to improve. So if you make muscles fatigue to the point where they can no longer lift a particular weight, they will have a message that says, we're not strong enough, we need to get stronger. And so they'll build strength. Same with a muscle. If you're trying to stretch it and it gets to the point where it can't stretch further, but it feels like you're wanting to stretch further, it will go, we're not good enough, we need to stretch further, therefore we'll get more flexible. And doing this, they talk about making micro tears in the muscles, which actually make them feel a bit injured and go, we're not adequate, we need to improve. Now, this is definitely a way of improving muscle strength and flexibility. But on a physiological level, you're doing this by entering a state of flight or fight, where the body starts to think that something's wrong. And when you do this, then physiologically, to a certain extent, you will disrupt the healthy functioning of your immune system, digestive system, reproductive system, because your body thinks it's under flight or fight. Which means the main aim should not be to reproduce cells, to encourage immunity, digestive health, but the main aim is to prepare for the possibility of running or fighting a particular perceived foe. And then at the same time, then, not only are you disrupting the potential for longevity and internal health, you're also mentally sending a message, which might not be that good a message, which is involved with the flight or fight response of fear, anger, aggression, lack of safety on a cellular level. And the subconscious mind is going, I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough. So I think it's more empowering and more physiologically and mentally beneficial if you practice in a way where you're not practicing towards your maximum, but you're more practicing in what the athletes call the zone. And the zone is that state where really it's akin to the meditative state, where you're feeling it's sustainable, it's engaging, it's calming, it's effortless. You feel like you could do it for a long time, but blood is flowing. And when blood is flowing while you're feeling relaxed, that's an invitation for immunity, digestion, reproduction to take place effortlessly. And when blood is flowing, you feel energized and you feel relaxed. That's also an invitation for happiness, because you're doing it with a pain-free, functional body. So I think that although this method is not akin with the rapid fire method of what many people think, no pain, no gain, which gives you a fast improvement, this will make you improve, but it improves a little bit slower physically, but then physiologically and mentally you get much better benefits. And in the long term, you get much better benefits as well. So it does seem to go against what many people think, but they're only focusing just on the physical. And if you want to train just to be a warrior with a short life, yeah, it works. I believe that better off spend 90 to 99% of the time training in the zone. And then if you want to get to the next Olympics, spend 10 minutes of your time, of your practice time, 10 minutes out of every 100 to practice more intensely with no pain, no gain. But if you want to live to 120, maybe for 1 minute every 100 minutes, then you go a little bit harder. The rest of the time, practice in a more meditative, loving way. And this gives a better balance physically, physiologically, mentally, socially, financially, I think.
I experienced that with you during the yoga teacher training because I had my back pain and I could not. And I realized that doing this yoga teacher training with you really helped me to build more strength than I ever did in 15 years, over 15 years of practicing Iyengar, Hatha, Yin, and other style of yoga. And suddenly I kind of understood that to go slower, because it's the same thing to an emotional level. You need time to integrate. You need time to just feel, to tune in with every cells of your body, to adjust the frequency of your soul and your body cells, your soul, your mind cell, your body cells. And if you go too fast, yes, you're hurting yourself. If you go too fast,
I
look at
tried for
how many
years.
people. How many people are going into relationship too fast and they hurt themselves? It's the same thing here. This is the relationship with yourself. So this is the beauty of it. And that was really something that, that was like, I think like 5 days that I could not move. And I was literally visualizing the movement, just visualizing the movement by being in class, laying down and looking at all of you. And I built strength. I came back, because then I came to another workshop with you and I was like, oh my God, I can do things that I was not able to do 5 days ago, that I was not even able to do like 6 months ago.
Yeah, well, it works. It really does work. And we saw it in you and so many people in the training. I had a lovely time after I saw you, not so long ago, I was in Sri Lanka, and we had 3 girls who were training in a way similar to what you and I trained in Spain recently. And 3 of them said almost the same story, that they were experiencing strength and flexibility increases without the need for tension and stretch. But what they also noticed, and I'm talking about girls here, because their menstrual cycle restarted. One hadn't had a menstrual period for 9 months, another one for several years, and another one had been very irregular, you know. So this happens very commonly where you can see genuine physiological changes happening in a very positive way, while at the same time seeing physical changes taking place as well, such as in your case, the relief of back pain, or for other people, increases in strength or flexibility, where you can see, you know, definite changes, yet without the sense of discomfort or stretch or tension. And then physiological benefits like menstrual cycle regulating, hormones regulating, and a lot of joy, mental peace, clarity.
Yes, definitely the mood. It's just
Mm.
there's this piece of, okay, I'm dancing because you dancing yoga. It's when I teach
Yeah.
when I teach in Paris, people are like, oh, but it's like dancing yoga. I'm like, yes, it is dancing yoga, but this is the way that it used to be, I guess, in India, thousands of years ago. When we see in the temples, you know, the women, they all dancing like yoga. We don't see them doing those like hard and strong asana, like a shirshasana or a pincha, all those kind of things. And it brings this kind of rhythm to go. It's like, because the music in Japanese, they have this word kanji. Kanji, you know, the kanji, this is the way.
Yeah.
My son told me the other day, he was like, so can you help me, mom, with that? Like, maybe we'll see. And he was like, yeah, I need to do a couple of kanjis. Like, okay, what is that? So it's the one word is created out of other words. So for example, so he said, idea is created out of the sound and heart. So I was like, so what does it mean for you? It's like, well, all the idea comes from the sounds of the heart. So it's like, it's all about frequency. And the dance is a frequency. Every movement is a frequency. And the more if we cut the frequency every time, it's we can see that on Schumann resonance, all the things. If we cut those frequency, it's those movements are harder, whether it's internal or external, whether it's visible or feelable. I don't know if we say that feelable, but
Yes. 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 Of course.
yeah, and that's the interesting things in how we with all those frequency, this and the music also, which is a change into the class that gives like another rhythm, another dynamic, and you get out of the class, and it's you may have not worked as hard as in any other class on any aspect of your body and mind, but definitely something is happening, and that's all the magical of the subconscious or unconscious, and that is manifesting into every aspect of your life, as you were saying, those different aspects, like 5D aspects of your life, and the time, because also I'm bouncing back on the time you mentioned before. We tend to get attached too much to the past, right? So how do we be more present to the now and see how it can be sustainable? But it's so easy to go back to the past. Oh, but I was doing this like that. How we can just be present, learn something different, and see how it can be sustainable and good for every aspect of our life. That's a big question.
Sorry. Can we ensure that it's going to be sustainable?
Yeah, exactly. This is by doing this differently, using the time. Okay, I let go of the past. I know it's there, and this is what made me me. But it's also that, okay, with the present, learning something new, discovering something new, like you were saying before we started the recording, that every class I plan something, but I may adjust depending on the things you follow, the frequency of the group or the people. When I give private class, it's like I tune in with my student. So I may not do at all what I had planned to do. But it's whether it's on yoga or coaching, you know, it might change over the minute or hours. But this is the beauty of how by being present, it can stay sustainable.
Yes. You mean, I'm not sure exactly what you mean. You're saying, how can we ensure that we're doing something sustainable in teaching a class or in the long-term future of the practice?
It's in the long term, whether it's on yoga, whether it's on lifestyle. It's really how by the more we let go of the past and we detach from those all those attachments our mind is getting attached to, like whether it's a posture could be a yoga posture, a yoga asana, or it could be a pattern we're having in our life. And if we touch for that and try to do something new, because we discover, for example, like I discover you 5D flow, and I was like, oh my God, it makes me stronger on all aspects of my life. But if I had stayed attached to my old pattern of just, I mean, we spoke a lot about Iyengar, right, during the together because of my 15 years of practicing Iyengar. And by detaching for all I learned from that, I become stronger and I approach those asana in a different way. So I approach my life from a different angle also, which is much more comfortable. Because I remember being
Yes.
in pain after like a 4 hours workshop, Iyengar workshop. The day after, I mean, for like 3 days after, I was walking like a duck. But with a 4 or 6 hours practice with you, like, oh, I can actually do more.
Yes. Yes. Look, I think that to make it sustainable in the long-term future, you need to at least make it sustainable in the present moment and the short-term future and the medium-term future and immediately after practice. And that's the biggest guide that we can find from our own practice. The only other way, so in other words, if you want to make sure that the practices that we're doing are going to have good long-term health, check first. It feels good while you're doing it. It feels good immediately after the practice. You're in no pain the next day. You have a good result over the next couple of years when you're watching the practice. That's the first thing you can do, the only thing you can do. Then check that the people around you who have been doing it longer than you, how are they going? Because you can only know so much of your life.
Mm.
Check how they're going. Then you have to say, who was it who taught this practice? How was their lineage? Because in the end, like I know for myself, I started my practice, physically, you could say I started the rigorous practice as an adult when I was 20, and I did stuff. It wasn't always the same. But after 20 years, I went, right, I've been doing this experiment on my body for 20 years. What's the result? And I go, okay, well, that was good. This worked well, but I didn't like the results here and there with this aspect of my body, physically, physiologically, mentally, socially, or whatever. Therefore, I'm going to keep practicing these parts because they seem to work, but I have to change these bits because they didn't work. Now I'm starting a new experiment on my body. And that new experiment, of course, is not really a second attempt at the first experiment. It's a completely different experiment because I'm not dealing with a 20-year-old body now. Now I'm dealing with a 40-year-old body, which is a different body entirely. And so now I've done two experiments, one in a 20-year-old body, one in a 40-year-old body. Now at 64 years old, I have to think about a new experiment. You see, you only get one experiment in your life because after you've done the experiment on your body, you don't have the same body again. So the thing is, the only way we can really tell whether a practice is going to be sustainable for true longevity is by trusting people who have access to the knowledge of multiple lives. And that means a lineage of teachers where someone will teach you something and say, I know this works because my teacher said it works. His teacher learnt off his teacher who definitely said it works. And look at us, we've all lived to 120 years old and we've all been healthy all our lives. That is the only way you can really guarantee that something really works. Because even for me, I'm 60 years old. I can give you the experience of my 60 years. But I'm actually trying to give you also the teaching that resonates with me from my teachers like Iyengar, Patabi Joyce, Jessica Cha, and my Chinese teachers, who have a lineage going back hundreds of years. And, they're not just saying their own experience, they're telling you lineage from earlier on. Of course, you have to check, can you trust that they're actually telling you the truth? Are they genuinely knowing the truth? Because at the moment, people don't really learn these lineage stories. They learn what they learn off the internet. And you obviously can't trust what you can learn on the
Especially
internet.
with the AI coming up. And so
No, exactly.
trusting more the AI than a doctor or someone that is more aware of different things or more knowledgeable of different topics. So Yeah,
Yes.
important.
But did that address your comment a little bit? Because I wasn't sure exactly where you were coming from with
No,
that, but I
yeah,
think,
definitely. And I can see even more, if people were applying those approaches on their mental part, that would be fabulous because it's okay. What does it work or how does it resonate? Because it's a lot of resonance at the end, right? It's how does it resonate? Do I like um, how those changes affected that person? Do I like, what
yes,
she
yes,
did? And do I like who she became or who he became or who they became? And this is that, okay, let me try and see if that resonates with me.
sure.
So so that would be the kind of things. I mean, this is how I work and how, getting inspired by the people and say, okay, that resonates. And you were speaking about the truth. And I think we are far from the absolute truth, um, but it's more like, okay, is that thing is good for me? Does it resonate? Or maybe sometimes people say, no, I tried yoga and it's not for me. But you tried
Yeah.
when you'll everything is changing to the second. So how about you try again? Sometime I didn't try yoga classes with certain Iyengar teacher, and I loved with other Iyengar teacher. So it's also a matter of how it's going to be taught. So it's not just the practice; it's also how I think it's the love we have on sharing and on giving what works for us. Also, that is a big thing because that inspire people instead of influence or lead. It's more like, okay, that works for me. Do you want to give it a try and see with your own level, with your own pace, and see what works for you? And this is also what I like a lot about this approach is, which is something that I try to approach with my clients too on a coaching level, is see how it resonates, see what you can do today. Okay, because maybe someday you can do a headstand or something. And some of the day you might not be able to do it. Some of the,
Mhm.
like, look at the yoga teacher training. I was like the first of the class, the first couple of days and everything, or the first 3 weeks. And the last couple of days, I was at the back of the room laying down because I pushed myself too much. I didn't listen to my body 2 years ago after an accident. I didn't restore my body properly. And I didn't give my body enough love and kindness to restore it properly. So I got hurt onto a physical level. And I worked on my frustration because I could not participate to the class as I wanted to, but also it helped me to bring a lot of humility. As a teacher, I just can do that also with learning from this experience, from that. So it was really fascinating how we can incorporate all those levels onto a mindset, a different, changing our mindset on how we approach life on different levels. So this is what I love about it.
Yeah, no, that's very good. No, it's really important to change the mindset. Our approach to how we practice is really important, and to have a good feeling in your heart and mind while you're practicing is very, very important. If you don't resonate with something, you're not going to do it. If you're not feeling comfortable about doing something, and this is why you can't also give a training like I'm offering without first giving people the reasons for it, because many people, they are resistant to practice like I'm suggesting because they think they're heading for a different goal. Many people are just thinking it's about their appearance, or many people just thinking it's about the physical results. And many people are limited by scientific beliefs, and many people are limited by mainstream media beliefs and stuff
Mm.
like this. So often for me, what I'm teaching in the first week of a 1 month intensive training, or at least for the first few hours of any class I teach, I'm doing unlearning, not learning. Because many people's concepts are often, they're not wrong concepts, but they're concepts people have grabbed onto, and they're just holding on to them like they're the only truth. Like, for example, it's it's a good idea that if someone has a child and they have a natural birth, and the pelvic floor becomes overexpanded, and there's a laxity in the pelvic floor, so maybe it might lead to urinary incontinence or something like this, then it's good for someone like that to learn pelvic floor contraction exercises.
Mm.
And as a physiotherapist, this is what I'll advise to someone who has a damaged pelvic floor as a result of childbirth, or to an elderly person who becomes incontinent. But to then think that everyone has to have pelvic floor exercises, that's the mistake.
Mm.
Or to see someone who, say, has a lower back problem, where we know that if their back moves in any direction at all, it'll cause them pain. So one way out as a temporary measure for that person would be, we know your back hurts if you move it, therefore don't move it. And one way of doing that is by exhaling fully, pulling your navel to the spine, locking your core, and then walking in a way where you don't move your trunk at all. Maintain a neutral spine, don't move it in any way at all, and that way it won't hurt. This is a bit like putting a cast on a person's broken leg, because if you move a broken leg, it won't heal properly and it'll hurt. But to say to everyone, don't move your spine, never move your core, that would be the mistake. So in other words, people have latched onto ideas that are not wrong, but they're only useful for certain situations. So to at least get across the idea that we have to be flexible about when we adopt one information set, that it's not going to be adopted in all situations. And we mentioned Iyengar before, who was one of my great teachers. I love this man. He was wonderful. But what was always nice about him was every time we saw him, he showed us a different way of doing things. And I love Iyengar as a person, but somehow his system became a little bit twisted in the modern world because, of course, not everyone learnt of him personally. Many people learnt of people who learnt of other people. And so they got the impression that if he said something once, he meant to do that always. But my understanding from him personally was you only do a particular way of doing something on a particular situation, not always. And that's about being flexible. And, one time Mr. Iyengar was he's always very funny, but sometimes one time he was adjusting people and someone said, Guruji, what's the most difficult part of a person to adjust? And he goes, people's heads. That's the hardest, most stiffest part in people's bodies, to think that it's always right one way. You have to have a mindset which then can become flexible. And my best suggestion to people is to trust your gut feeling. If it doesn't feel good for you, maybe you're not like the people around you. Maybe it's feeling good for them for a different reason. But if it's not feeling good for yourself, don't do it. At least, maybe you're ready for it, not right now, but another time. Or maybe you need to tweak it a bit. I believe that really something which is part of your personal practice should mostly, 99% of the time, personally feel good. And then it's something you're going to keep doing. Otherwise, if it doesn't feel good while you're doing it, you're probably not going to sustain the practice. I think this is important.
I think that's also the beauty of what you're teaching is there's always during your class, you always have like the option to do a bit more, to do a bit less, and depending on how you feel. And I think this is very important everyday life, as I said before. Maybe today I can do this, maybe today I cannot, and just observe how we feel, whether it's on the physical level, on the mind. And it's true, and this is my everyday work. The mind is the most difficult things to unprogram. And
yes, it's true.
yeah.
It's true. Yes.
One of my
Yes,
clients said to me, you're an electrician of the soul and mind.
yeah.
Like, that's interesting. I never thought about it that way, but that's very interesting. So yeah, it's really a lot about the core of the mind, the core of the body, and this allowing this flexibility of the mind to allow the flexibility of the body also. Because when people
100%.
start
Yes.
being flexible from the mind, the body is following. So
It's very true. Very true. And as you said, this joining between the flexibility in the mind, the flexibility of your core or your trunk, and it relates to the idea that the thinking brain in your head is more of a logical brain, but then the intuitive brain or your gut brain at your core, this large enteric nervous system, which is more nervous tissue than is in a spinal cord. that is your feeling brain. And really, a grasp of reality in this world is not just about logic, it's about intuition as well. And so often the union between the masculine and feminine inside ourselves, which brings us to wholeness, is the union between uh, the thinking brain in the head and the feeling brain at our core, so that you don't just logically deduce things, you have to intuitively feel if they're right for you as well. And even the cosmologists will admit that they can only tell you what the universe is about if they logically deduce the steps from an intuitively guessed beginning point, which they often call the Big Bang, where everything came out of nothing, like magic. There's no logic behind the Big Bang. And it's the same with mathematics. Mathematics is a bunch of logical steps that are based on a bunch of intuitive guesses. So to think that we just have to live in the thinking brain of the head is going to give us a very false perception of reality. And often the conflict that arises between men and women is that women have more of intuition, men have more logic. And really, when women and men get on best is when they recognize the power of unifying logic and intuition together. And that's what I'm trying to do with my teaching, to recognize that we can't lock our core where the enteric nervous system is. You need to move from the core, breathe from the core, feel from your core, and make that in harmony with what goes on in the thinking brain in our head. This is
Yes,
important.
rebalance. I do that on my coaching on rebalancing the feminine and masculine energy so they can actually work together instead of competing with all those movement of hashtag Me Too,
Yes.
gender equality, all of that. And we have to work together to rebalance, to bring more harmony into our life, onto all
Mm-hmm.
aspects of life. So
When I was early, early 20s at university, someone approached me. This is 40 years ago, and they said they'd like to come to Australia and live here, and they asked if I'd be interested in marrying them, so they could get residency. And I was young and foolish, and I said, well, I guess so. They were going to offer me some financial remuneration. It seemed like a good idea at the time. And then I said, so who is this person? It was a friend of theirs. And they said it's their girlfriend. She was a girl talking to me, and she said her girlfriend from Canada wants to come. And I said, well, look, could I meet her? And she said, no, she hates men. And I go, look, I'm all for feminism, I'm all for equal rights on all levels, but there's not much point causing as much disharmony between men. What we want is harmony between men and women, not disharmony. So it's really important that everyone is not just equal, but the communication between men and women is so important. I think it's really, really important. And the communication between the masculine and feminine inside ourselves is really the pathway to make the communication between people better, I think.
yeah, I mean, you stole the word out of my body, literally. It's exactly that. It's like rebalancing the feminine and masculine energy we have within to also
Mm,
be in more harmony within ourselves. Because so many
yeah.
times, I mean, I remember years ago when I was not working so much on myself and to my emotional level, and I was like fighting with myself. I have this intuition, but I have to do this, da 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 da. And then it was like, okay, where do I go? Because with a hyperactive mind, I was like, and then I was stuck. I could not move anymore because it was not connecting with this flow of movement. And okay, maybe a bit more of this, maybe a bit more of that, but let's see with the day. But I was more fighting with myself onto what do I have to listen? And therefore, I could not do anything anymore instead of letting the things be into the now moment and all those kind of things. So speaking about the now moment, and frankly, I would love, I mean, you know how much I love talking with you and sharing different ideas. And it could go on for like probably 3, 4, 5 hours easily. But it's time to end this beautiful conversation. And the first on this flow through art idea. And maybe much more question next time.
Bless you. It's so nice to talk to you, Penelope.
So
Thank
thank
you
you
very
so
much.
much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And look forward to see you. Maybe in Goa. I would love to try to come to Goa. I will
That'd
do
be
my best
lovely.
for that. Bye.
Thank you.